Senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, we have a problem in our Air National Guard right now. This body knows full well where I've been on vaccine mandates coming down for the president. I've adamantly opposed the vaccine mandates on private sector employees, which I find absurd that the president is announcing to every company with 100 people or more, I'm going to take over the contracts for employment in your company. And no matter how long that employee's been there, how valuable they are at the company, you need to fire them if they don't follow the vaccine mandate. That is not the right of a president. It has formed chaos in our federal workers. It has formed chaos in our contractors for federal employees. Now, let me tell you what's happening in the National Guard right now. Tuesday of this week, November the 30th, Secretary of Defense sent out a letter saying that by today, December the 2nd, every person in the National Guard had to be vaccinated or they would no longer be paid. Now, that applied to the Air National Guard as of today, but to the Army National Guard, that doesn't apply until June the 30th. Let me run this past this body again. If you're in the Air National Guard and you're not vaccinated by today, you won't be paid anymore. You also can't show up at drill this weekend. You can't go into any training at all as of this weekend. But if you're in the Army National Guard, you have until June the 30th to be able to fulfill this mandate. Now, I've been clear, I'm adamantly opposed to the mandate, period. But to then make it unequal between the Air National Guard and the Army National Guard is even worse. And on top of all of that, what the administration did as of this week, they sent out information for the Air National Guard members, and I assume for the Army National Guard starting in June, that this is going to be a different process. Title 32 is the authority for the National Guard. Now, for folks that aren't following this, though the folks in this body do, some people get confused between the reserves and the Guard. They're not the same. The reserves are like active duty. The Guard actually work for the governor of each state. Each state has accountability for the Guard members, and there's a responsibility to make sure they're trained and ready and equipped for federal service if they're called up for federal service. But when they're under what's called Title 32 authority, they work for the governor of the state. If a unit is not prepared, the state is punished for their lack of preparation. So funds can be taken away from the state, but not going down to individual members of the Guard. What did the Pentagon do this week? The Pentagon this week announced that not only are they not going to pay individual members, but they're literally reaching down into a unit, identifying members that have not received the vaccine, and they're not going to pay that person. There is no authority in law for the Pentagon to do that. In fact, that issue was debated in this body several years ago, and this body voted no on that. The Pentagon does not have the authority to reach into the governor's National Guard and determine who will be paid and who will not be paid in the National Guard. But that's exactly what the president is trying to do and what the Pentagon is trying to do. Why is this a big issue? Because the Air National Guard, as of tomorrow, that are not vaccinated will not be paid. And this weekend, they cannot go to drill. Why is that a big issue? Many of the folks in the Air National Guard that are not vaccinated are the pilots. Listen, if we're going to talk about military readiness, I understand the differences of opinion here in the vaccine mandates. And some people have no issue with the vaccine mandates. I do. But we should all agree on military readiness. We should all agree on following the law and not allowing the Pentagon and the president to deliberately violate the law that we wrote and the president has signed in violating Title 32. Last night, I was on this very same floor at this very same desk asking for amendment on the NDAA. Today, I understand I'm not getting that amendment on the NDAA. I've taken that same amendment and I've moved it into language that we can use as a standalone bill. This is a very simple, straightforward, no issues, no ancillary anything on the bill. It simply says that we cannot allow the administration or the Pentagon, any one of them, to violate the law, to be able to reach into a National Guard unit and identify individual members and not pay them. That's already the law. We're just affirming the law that already is. And the second thing is not allowing them to be able to cut off pay based on their vaccination status in the National Guard when they're in Title 32 status. That means they're working for the governor of that state. They've not been activated to federal duty. This is a big issue, and it's a big issue right now because the Air National Guard members and many of our pilots are about to stop training right now. And in the days ahead for the Army National Guard, I remind this body of a number that most of us know. Only 40% of our Guard members are vaccinated, meaning 60% are not. Are we really ready to lose that much readiness over this issue? I would hope not. So as if in legislative session, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to immediate consideration of calendar number 174 S3299. I further ask that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and that the motion to reconsider be considered made, laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Rhode Island.
reserving my right to object, the senator from Oklahoma, as he always does, has very thoughtfully identified a problem that's affecting our military forces. And he's also identified the complex interplay between different aspects of the law, Article 32, Article 10, the authority of a governor, the authority of Secretary of Defense, legislation we might have passed. This is an issue that I think bears close scrutiny, and I would like to assist in such scrutiny. But in terms of preemptively adopting a statute tonight without such scrutiny, I would be compelled to object. So, Mr. President, with all due respect to the senator from Oklahoma, I would object.
The objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Oklahoma.
I look forward to working with Senator Reid on this. He's been a good partner dealing with this. He is passionate about protecting our military and keeping our forces ready, and I very much appreciate his partnership in that, and I look forward to our ongoing dialogue on this. I've had multiple phone calls to leadership in the Pentagon, leadership in the National Guard. I'm not getting clear answers on this. As I try to be an advocate for the members of our Air National Guard, I want to be able to make sure that we provide them that opportunity to be able to serve and that we don't lose access to readiness. So I very much appreciate his partnership in that. Mr. President,
Senator from Oklahoma.
I'd like to ask unanimous consent to be able to speak as if in a different portion of the record.
Is there objection? Without objection.
Mr. President, it's my understanding that in a short period of time, we'll be voting on the continuing resolution. Continuing resolution has now been passed in the House. It's been delivered over to the Senate. This maintains our government operations for the next 2 months. I have been a person that has expressed my frustration that we've not taken up the vast majority of the appropriation bills, even in committee. It's my understanding that even as of today, 9 of the 12 appropriation bills have not even been discussed in committee, and all 12 of those bills should have been done by September the 30th. We're now well past that now. September the 30th, we passed a continuing resolution that went until tomorrow. Now we're passing another one that's going to go into February. As I read through it, as it just came over from the House of Representatives and was scanning quickly through it when they actually released the language in it this morning, I was interested to be able to see a couple of things that popped out to me in particular serving on the Homeland Security Committee. Serving that position in Homeland Security and some of the issues that we deal with on a day-to-day basis and an oversight, I was fascinated to see 2 particular areas that popped out to me in this. One of them was dealing with unaccompanied minors. The administration earlier this year took some of the COVID money that had been allocated in March and used that COVID money dealing with unaccompanied minors. We've yet to get a full accounting of how much that was, but then when the continuing resolution was passed just September the 30th, $2.5 billion with a B, $2.5 billion additional dollars were allocated just to deal with the surge of unaccompanied minors for this year. Well, that was a few months ago now. This continuing resolution is allocating another $1.5 billion to unaccompanied minors. So they took, we don't know how much money on the COVID money for unaccompanied minors, and then if this bill passes tonight, which I assume it will at this point, it's another $4 billion just in the unaccompanied minors. May I remind you how large of a figure that is, of additional $4 billion? Before we lose track of that, what jumped out at me first when I went through this was a surprising number. In the continuing resolution that just came over from the House just minutes ago, there is a request for an additional $7 billion for Afghan refugees. And when you say, okay, I understand, in the September 30th continuing resolution, there was $6 billion for Afghan refugees that were there. That is $13 billion for Afghan refugees. The best that we can tell, we have 69,000 Afghan refugees that are in the process, and we're allocating $13 billion for it. Now, we all thought, when we had the conversation here, that $6 billion that was allocated was an enormous amount of money that was allocated. But now, 3 months after the refugees started being able to move out of Afghanistan in that debacle of a withdrawal that happened, now we're talking about not $6 billion, but $13 billion. That's around $200,000 per person so far. If that was not bad enough, in the continuing resolution done September the 30th, because of the enormous size of this amount of money, and because of how little information has actually come to this body, there was a demand in it that by November the 30th, that was 2 days ago, the Department of Homeland Security would have to turn over a report of actually what's happening with the Afghan refugees. Has anyone in this body read that report from DHS now on how they're handling the Afghan refugees? I would go ahead and preemptively answer no, because none of us have seen the report yet. Here's what we don't know, but yet this body demanded in the last CR to be able to get from DHS. We demanded to know crazy things like this: the number of lawful U.S. permanent residents that were evacuated out of Afghanistan. We don't have that number yet. We don't know how many were special immigrant visa holders. We don't know how many were actually applicants for special immigrant visas. We don't know the number that had any other immigrant status. We don't know the number who actually worked for our government that was actually evacuated. We've not been told, though we demanded it, to have it by November the 30th. We don't know the number of people that work for a partner government or any other entity that we were affiliated with, though we asked for that. We don't know the number of people that actually came through the process then were later determined to be security threats to the United States that had slipped through the process. We asked for that. We asked for that to come in by November the 30th. That's not been turned over. We asked for the number of people that were getting parole, that their parole was then terminated because of some other criminal activity or something else. We asked for that. That's a number they have. They've not turned that number over. We asked for even the number of interviews that had been conducted. We've yet to receive that. In fact, there has not been a single public hearing in the Senate on Afghan refugees. Not one. So not only have we not received anything in writing, we've not even received any testimony from anyone from DHS on this. Listen, we gave DHS $6 billion and said, we're going to allocate this money to you. We just want to know who we're allocating it to and what it's going to be used for. That doesn't seem unreasonable. But not only is this body not holding DHS accountable for not answering our questions, we're handing them $7 billion more tonight. Does anyone else see this as an issue? I'm all for keeping the government open, but this body has a responsibility of oversight. We've pretended we're doing oversight, but we're actually not doing oversight. Not a hearing, not a report, nothing. $13 billion. So yes, I'm going to oppose the CR tonight. I'm not holding up the vote. I understand full well the responsibility of all 100 of us to put ourselves on the record. But if we're going to actually say we're going to do oversight, let's actually do oversight. And it is not unreasonable when we all agree these are the facts and figures that should come from DHS to just tell us what's going on with the Afghan refugees, that we actually expect they're going to turn those things over. So in the days ahead, I hope we'll actually hold a hearing and actually get the facts. I hope we'll actually demand that they turn over to us what we've required to turn over to them, and I hope we get full accounting of how they're spending $13 billion on what we understand was 69,000 people, most of which have not even been moved in and across the United States yet. $13 billion. With that, I yield the floor.